Flames devoured the smokehouse. Ezra tore the door open, plunging into hell itself. Abigail lay in the corner, blood soaking through her shirt, barely breathing. The roof groaned above them, seconds from collapse. He had failed to save his daughter 4 years ago. 3 men rode past while Ruth died in the heat. Not this time. Never again. The rifle in his hand was still warm. 1 man lay dead in the yard. The choice was made. But that is not where the story begins. 45 years later, an old man sits on his porch in Montana, watching the sun set over a school that changed everything. His hands bear the scars of a life spent building, fighting, surviving. And he is ready to tell the truth. You want to know how it began? Ezra Brennan's voice carries the weight of 8 decades. It began with a choice, the kind most men run from their entire lives. August 1875. The creak. The moment his dead heart remembered how to beat. The porch boards creak under the weight of 87 years. Ezra Brennan sits in his chair, the same chair he has occupied every evening for the past 4 decades, watching the sun paint the Montana sky in shades of amber and gold. His hands, gnarled like old oak roots, rest on his knees. The knuckles bear the scars of a life spent building, fighting, surviving. A young man approaches. He cannot be more than 25, fresh-faced and eager, clutching a notepad like it might save his life. The reporter has traveled 200 miles to ask questions about history, about legacy, about a school that changed Montana forever. Ezra does not stand to greet him. Movement comes harder now. The bones remember every winter, every wound, every year of hard labor under an unforgiving sky. Mr. Brennan. The young man's voice carries the uncertain pitch of someone meeting legend made flesh. Thank you for agreeing to speak with me. The anniversary 45 years since the school opened. People want to know the story. Ezra lets the silence stretch. Not from cruelty, but from habit. He has learned that most questions answer themselves if you wait long enough. His eyes, still sharp despite their years, study the reporter. Another boy who thinks history lives in facts and dates, who does not yet understand that the truth of a life lives in the spaces between words. What do they want to know? Ezra's voice carries the rough texture of creek gravel worn smooth by time. Everything, sir. How you built this place, why you built it. They say you killed 3 men to protect the school. A ghost of a smile touches Ezra's weathered face. Not 3, 1. And I did not kill him for the school. The school did not exist yet. I killed him because I had to choose between his life and hers. I chose hers. The reporter scribbles frantically. Her. You mean your wife, Sister Abigail Thorne? Abigail Brennan. She stopped being Sister Abigail the day she married me. Ezra's hand moves to touch a faded photograph on the small table beside his chair. A tall woman with dark eyes and darker hair stands beside a younger version of himself. Neither of them smile in the photograph. They did not need to. The commitment in their posture says more than any smile could. Sir, the readers want to understand how a mountain man and a nun built one of the most progressive schools in Montana history. How did it begin? Ezra closes his eyes. The world behind his eyelids blazes brighter than the sunset. He sees it all again, vivid as yesterday, sharp as broken glass. The creek, the blood, the moment his dead heart remembered how to beat. You want to know how it began? He opens his eyes, fixing the reporter with a gaze that makes the young man shift in his seat. It began with a choice. The kind of choice that defines whether a man lives or just exists. The kind most men run from their entire lives. What kind of choice, sir? Whether to ride past someone who needs help, or whether to stop knowing it might cost you everything. Ezra reaches for the old journal at his feet, leather-bound and worn soft by decades of handling. August 1875. I was 42 years old. I had been dead for 4 years. Not buried, but dead all the same. And then I found her at the creek. The reporter leans forward, pen poised. You want the story. Ezra opens the journal. The pages smell of dust and memory. Then listen. Because this is not about a school. This is about how a dead man learned to live again, how he learned that saving one person can save the world, and how sometimes the greatest legacy comes from the deepest pain. The sun touches the horizon. Golden light floods across the valley, illuminating the school building that bears both their names. Children's laughter drifts on the evening air, faint but clear. Ezra Brennan begins to speak, and as he speaks, the years fall away. Montana, August 1875. The grassland stretches forever, rolling hills of gold beneath a sky so blue it hurts to look at directly. Ezra Brennan rides alone as he has ridden every day for 4 years. His horse knows the path without guidance. They follow the creek north, checking the beaver dams that mark his trapping territory. Not that Ezra cares about the beavers anymore, not that he cares about much of anything. The work gives him a reason to leave the cabin each morning. That is all. A reason to move, to breathe, to continue the mechanical process of existing. Some men drink themselves to death after loss. Some eat a bullet. Ezra Brennan chooses the slower path. He simply stops living while his body continues its stubborn refusal to die. 4 years ago, his wife Margaret and his daughter Ruth took the wagon into town. A simple trip, 12 miles. The kind they had made 100 times before. But this time the wheel broke. Cracked hub, sheared axle, the wagon tilted into the ditch like a dying animal. August heat, 100 degrees, no shade for miles. Margaret tried to walk for help carrying 6-year-old Ruth. She made it half a mile before the heat drove them back to the wagon. They waited. They had water for maybe 3 hours. After that, the sun did its work. 3 riders passed them. 3 different men at 3 different times. Margaret waved. She called out, "Please, my daughter needs help. Just a ride to town. Just someone to send back with a horse." All 3 kept riding. By the time Ezra found them at sunset, Ruth was unconscious. Heat stroke, her small body burning from the inside. Margaret held her rocking back and forth, whispering prayers that went unanswered. Ezra drove them to town at a gallop, the horses foaming, but it was already too late. Ruth died 2 days later. Never woke up. Just slipped away her last word, a whispered, "Papa," that still echoes in Ezra's skull every night before sleep claims him. Margaret followed a week after. The doctor said her heart gave out. Ezra knows different. She died of a broken heart, the kind medical men refuse to acknowledge because they cannot cut it open and study it. She died because their daughter died. She died because 3 men chose convenience over compassion. Ezra buried them on the hill above the cabin, side by side, mother and daughter. He carved the headstones himself, working through the night, his hands bleeding, his mind empty of everything except the rhythm of chisel on stone. Then he made a decision. No more people, no more caring, no more of the attachments that lead to loss. He would live out his years in solitude, tend his traps, maintain his cabin, and wait for the day he could lie down between those 2 graves and finally mercifully stop. For 4 years he keeps that promise. Until the creek. The sound reaches him first. Laughter. Not the warm kind that speaks of joy, but the ugly sort that comes from cruelty. The crack of a whip cutting air, a voice male and mocking drifting across the water. Ezra's hand moves to the Winchester rifle across his saddle before his conscious mind catches up. Instinct. The same instinct that kept him alive through a childhood of poverty, through years of frontier survival, through the 100 small violences that living in Montana requires. He guides his horse through the cottonwood trees lining the creek bank. 50 yards upslope, he dismounts, ties the reins to a low branch, moves forward on foot, silent as the hunter he has been for 30 years. The scene below freezes him in place. A woman stands at the creek's edge. Her hands are bound behind her back with rough rope, the kind that tears skin if you struggle. Blood traces a slow line from a cut above her eyebrow, dark against darker skin. She is tall, taller than any woman Ezra has ever seen. 6 feet at least, broad-shouldered, built like she was carved from the same oak that frames these hills. 3 men circle her on horseback. They move lazy, confident, like cats playing with prey already defeated. Ezra recognizes one immediately. Clayton Mercer. Early 40s face mapped with scars from some war he fought and lost. He worked briefly for the Whitmore Ranch before getting fired for stealing horses. That was 2 years back. Clearly the time since has not improved his character. Clayton holds a whip. He lets it uncoil, testing the air, watching the woman flinch at the sound. The second man spits tobacco juice that splatters near the woman's feet. His grin shows teeth gone brown from years of poor choices and worse hygiene. A drifter. Ezra has seen 1,000 like him, men who take what they want and leave ruins behind. The third man just watches. His eyes are flat, empty. The kind of emptiness that comes when a man stops feeling anything at all, when killing becomes no different than breathing. This is the dangerous one, the professional, the kind who has done this before and will do it again without losing sleep. The woman does not cry out, does not beg. Her silence seems to enrage Clayton more than screaming would. "You are too damn big to be any use," Clayton says. His voice carries the casual cruelty of someone who has said such things so often they have become reflex. Cannot fit you in a wagon, cannot sell you to a house in town. Hell, cannot even find clothes to cover those arms. What are we supposed to do with you? The woman says nothing. Her dark eyes track each movement, calculating, patient. A warrior waiting for the right moment rather than the desperate moment. Clayton raises the whip. Ezra's world narrows to a single point of decision. He could ride away. These are not his people, not his problem. He owes nothing to a stranger, especially one who brings 3 armed men to his territory. The smart choice, the safe choice, is to turn his horse and disappear into the hills. But then memory strikes like lightning. Margaret and Ruth beside the broken wagon, waiting, hoping, watching 3 riders pass by without stopping. The whip cracks through air. The woman flinches but does not fall. A red line appears across her shoulder where the leather kissed skin through torn fabric. Clayton laughs and winds up for another strike. Ezra makes his choice. He moves before thought, before fear, before any of the reasons this is a bad idea can take root. His horse crashes through the tree line, hooves striking stone, the sound like thunder in the quiet valley. All 3 men turn as one. Clayton's hand freezes mid-swing. The man with flat eyes reaches for his revolver, but does not draw. Not yet. The mathematics of the situation are still being calculated. "That is close enough," the flat-eyed man says. His voice matches his gaze, empty of inflection. The kind of voice that belongs to someone who has killed before and will kill again without ceremony or regret. Ezra stops his horse 10 feet away. He keeps the Winchester loose in his grip, not aiming, but not setting it down either. His eyes move from man to man, cataloging weapons positions, angles of fire. Old habits from a life spent in places where hesitation means death. Then he looks at the woman. She stares back. No hope in those eyes, no expectation of rescue, just weary curiosity watching to see what kind of man he is, whether he will ride past like the others, or whether he will prove different. Her expression suggests she stopped betting on different a long time ago. "You boys got business here." Ezra's voice comes out quiet, but it carries weight the way voices do when they belong to men who do not need to shout to be heard. "Private business," Clayton says, recovering his swagger now that the initial surprise has passed. He gestures at the woman with his whip. "Found her wandering 3 days back. She is ours now." "She got a name?" "Hell if I know. She does not talk much." Ezra's eyes never leave the woman. "That true? You do not talk." For a long moment she says nothing. Then slowly, carefully she speaks. Her voice is damaged from lack of water, rough as creek gravel, but clear and steady beneath the roughness. "My name is Sister Abigail Thorne." The sound of her own name seems to surprise her, like she has not spoken it aloud in a very long time, like she forgot what it feels like to claim her own identity in front of others. Clayton's face darkens. He raises the whip again. "Nobody told you to speak." The crack of Ezra's Winchester cuts him off. The bullet kicks up dirt 3 inches from Clayton's boot, close enough that pebbles strike leather. All 3 men freeze. The flat-eyed one's hand is on his revolver, now fingers curled around the grip, but not drawing. Not yet. The mathematics are clear and brutal. Ezra has the rifle already aimed. By the time any of them clear leather, at least one will be dead, maybe two. The flat-eyed man looks like he is doing the calculations, weighing profit against cost, and the numbers are not adding up the way he would like. "I think your business here is finished," Ezra says. Clayton's face goes red, the kind of red that speaks of fury barely contained. "You got no right." "I got every right. This is my land you are standing on. Creek runs through my property for half a mile either direction. That makes this my business." It is a lie. The creek is open range, belongs to no one and everyone. But the lie is delivered with such flat certainty that doubt flickers across Clayton's face. He is not sure, and uncertainty is a crack Ezra can work with. The flat-eyed man studies Ezra for a long moment, weighing odds and outcomes with the cold precision of someone who has survived by making smart choices in bad situations. Then he nods once, a sharp economical movement. "Let's go," he says to the others. Clayton sputters. "We spent 3 days tracking her down, 3 days in the heat and the dust, and now you want to just walk away because some mountain man with a rifle says so. I said let's go." The flat-eyed man's voice does not rise, does not change inflection, just becomes more final, the way a door sounds when it closes for the last time. He turns his horse and starts riding north. The third man, the one who has been silent through all of this, follows immediately. His relief is visible in the sudden looseness of his shoulders, the way he does not look back. A young man, maybe 24, who got himself into something darker than he bargained for and is grateful for the excuse to leave. Clayton hesitates. His knuckles go white around the whip handle. Then he spits in Abigail's direction, a final act of petty cruelty, and yanks his horse around. He kicks it hard, racing to catch up with the others. Ezra watches until they disappear over the ridge. Only then does he lower the Winchester. Only then does he let out the breath he has been holding. His hands want to shake, but he will not let them. Not yet. Not while she is watching. Sister Abigail Thorne stands motionless, hands still bound, blood still trickling from the cut above her eye. She watches Ezra with that same careful, measuring gaze. Not grateful, not relieved, just waiting to see what he will do next. Waiting to see if he is the kind of man who saves you from one danger only to become a different kind of danger himself. Ezra dismounts slowly, keeps his movements deliberate and visible. He pulls his knife from his belt and approaches her. She does not flinch when he moves behind her to cut the ropes. The bindings fall away. Deep purple bruises circle both wrists, the kind that come from struggling against restraints for hours or days. She brings her hands forward slowly, flexing her fingers as circulation returns, with 1,000 needle pricks of pain she does not acknowledge. "You hurt anywhere else?" Ezra asks. She touches the cut on her forehead, looks at the blood on her fingertips with something like mild curiosity, as if it belongs to someone else. "Nothing that will not heal." Her voice is stronger now. It holds an accent he cannot quite place. Something that suggests she learned English from multiple sources, piecing together words from different teachers, different worlds. "You got somewhere to go." She looks at him for a long moment, then shakes her head once, a simple gesture that contains multitudes, loss and displacement and doors that have closed behind her. Ezra sighs. He knew this was coming. Knew it the moment he fired that warning shot. "My camp is 3 miles north. Got water, food, shelter if you need a place to rest." What, why? The question is direct, unadorned, no gratitude, no false modesty, just a request for explanation. She wants to know his reasons before she accepts his help. Smart, careful. The behavior of someone who has learned that help often comes with prices that are not named until the bill comes due. "Because those men will come back," Ezra says. "Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but they will come back and they will be angrier. You need time to heal, time to figure out your next move." Abigail studies him. Her dark eyes move across his face like she is reading a map, looking for lies, for hidden intentions, for the catch that always comes with offers of help. Ezra meets her gaze steadily. He has nothing to hide. His reasons are simple, even if they dredge up memories he would rather leave buried. Finally, Abigail nods. 3 miles north, Ezra confirms. He mounts his horse and extends his hand down. She looks at it for a moment, weighing trust against necessity, then grips his forearm. Her hands are enormous, her grip like iron. Ezra pulls, and despite her size, she swings up behind him with surprising grace. The kind of grace that comes from a body that knows how to move, how to balance, how to survive. The horse shifts under the added weight, but holds steady. Good Montana horses bred for mountains and hard work. They ride in silence. The grassland stretches around them, endless and golden in the afternoon light. Ezra can feel the tension in Abigail's posture, the way she holds herself rigid, maintaining distance, even though they share the same saddle. She will not relax. Not for a long time. Maybe never. Trust is earned, not given, and she has clearly learned that lesson the hardest way possible. "Those men," Abigail says suddenly, her voice close to his ear, "they will come for you now." "Probably." "You should have left me." Ezra does not answer immediately. He guides the horse around a cluster of rocks, then up a gentle slope. The land here is familiar, every stone and tree known to him from 4 years of solitary wandering. "I tried the mind my own business approach for a while," he says finally. "Turns out I am not very good at it. Most men who help strangers regret it. Most men do a lot of things they regret." They crest the hill and Ezra's camp comes into view. It is not much, and he knows it. A small cabin built from logs he cut and hauled himself. A smokehouse that leans slightly to the left, drying racks with pelts stretched across them. A small corral with 3 horses. Not a ranch. A trapper's camp, built for solitude, for a man who wanted to disappear into the mountains and never come back. But it is his. Every board, every fence post represents work and time and a stubborn refusal to give up even when giving up seemed like the easier path. Abigail's posture shifts slightly as she takes in the property. "You live alone. 4 years now. No wife, no children." The question lands like a fist to the gut. Ezra's jaw tightens. "Had both once. Do not anymore." Abigail says nothing, but he feels her nod against his back, a small acknowledgement of shared loss. She understands. Whatever her own story is, she knows what it means to have had something precious and lost it. They ride into the yard. Ezra dismounts first, then helps Abigail down. She stumbles slightly, exhaustion finally catching up now that immediate danger has passed. Ezra catches her elbow to steady her. "There is a place in the smokehouse where you can rest," he says. "I will bring food and water." Abigail looks at the smokehouse, then at the cabin, then back at Ezra. "You are not going to ask questions. Figure you will tell me what you want me to know when you are ready." For the first time since he saw her at the creek, something shifts in Abigail's expression. Not quite a smile, but a softening around the eyes. Recognition of decency she clearly did not expect to find. "Thank you," she says quietly. Ezra nods and turns toward the cabin. Behind him, he hears Abigail's heavy footsteps crossing toward the smokehouse. He pauses at his door and looks back. She stands in the doorway, silhouetted against the darkening sky, tall and imposing and impossibly alone. Then she steps inside, and darkness swallows her. Ezra goes into his cabin and closes the door. He leans against it for a moment, eyes closed, wondering what he has just gotten himself into. 4 years of quiet. 4 years of keeping his head down, avoiding entanglements, living with ghosts instead of people. And now he has inserted himself into something that will almost certainly end in blood. He opens his eyes and moves to the window. Through dusty glass he can see the smokehouse. No light shows from inside. Abigail is already resting or trying to. He wonders how long it has been since she felt safe enough to actually sleep. Ezra turns away and starts gathering supplies. Bread, dried meat, a jar of preserves, a canteen of fresh water. bandages and salve for the wounds he saw. As he works, his mind turns over the situation like a man examining wood for flaws. Those 3 men know his face now. They know he interfered. Men like that do not forget. They will come back looking for revenge or trying to reclaim what they consider their property. Ezra will need to be ready. He gathers the supplies and heads out to the smokehouse. The space smells of hay and smoke and old wood. Familiar and oddly comforting. Ezra pauses in the doorway, letting his eyes adjust to the dimness. Abigail sits on the cot in the corner, her back against the wall, one hand near a rusted pitchfork that leans against a beam. She has positioned herself so she can see both exits. Smart, careful. The behavior of someone who has learned not to trust, who has learned that safety is an illusion you maintain through vigilance. "Brought food," Ezra says, holding up the bundle, "and water, some bandages for that cut." Abigail nods but does not move. Her eyes track him as he crosses the floor. Ezra sets the supplies on a crate near the cot, then backs away, giving her space. "I will be in the cabin if you need anything," he says. "Wait." The word stops him. He looks back. Abigail is staring at the bundle of supplies, her expression unreadable. "Why?" she asks again. The same question, but this time there is something different in her voice. Not suspicion. More like genuine bewilderment, as if kindness is a puzzle she cannot solve. Ezra thinks about how to answer. He could give her the easy response, the surface explanation, but that feels hollow. So he tells her the truth instead. 4 years ago, my wife Margaret and daughter Ruth were traveling to town when a wheel broke on their wagon. They were stuck on the road for 6 hours in summer heat. 3 different riders passed them. Not one stopped. By the time I found them, Ruth was unconscious from heat stroke. She died 2 days later. Margaret followed a week after. The words come out flat, drained of emotion through repetition, but the pain beneath them is still sharp enough to cut. He has told this story before, to the sheriff, to the neighbors who helped bury them, to himself in the dark hours when sleep will not come. Abigail's face does not change, but something shifts in her eyes. Recognition, the understanding of someone who carries her own weight of loss. "I cannot bring them back," Ezra continues, "cannot change what happened, but I can make damn sure I am not the person who rides past someone who needs help, even if it costs me." Silence fills the smokehouse. Somewhere outside, a horse whinnies. The sound seems to come from very far away. "I am sorry," Abigail says finally. Her voice is soft, almost gentle. "For your loss." Ezra nods. "Eat, rest. We will figure out next steps in the morning." This time, when he turns to leave, she does not stop him. He makes it halfway across the floor before her voice reaches him again. "I am from the Shoshone Nation," she says. "My mother was Shoshone. My father was a fur trapper from Ireland. That is why I am—" She gestures at herself, at her height, at the breadth of her shoulders. "Too big for most people. Not Indian enough for my mother's people. Not white enough for my father's world. Caught in the middle my whole life." Ezra turns back to face her. She is not looking at him anymore. Her eyes are fixed on some distant point, some memory that plays out in the shadows. "6 months ago my father died," Abigail continues. "Fever took him. After that, the men in the trading post where we lived started looking at me different, like I was something they could use now that he was not there to protect me. So I ran. Been running ever since. Those 3 men caught me 3 days ago near the border." "You have family anywhere you can go." Abigail shakes her head. "My mother died when I was 12. I have cousins among the Shoshone, but I have not seen them in years. They might not remember me, and even if they did—" She trails off. But the implication is clear. She is too white for her mother's people, too Indian for her father's, caught between worlds with no safe place to land. "The convent," she says suddenly. "After my father could not care for me anymore, he sent me to St. Catherine's Convent in Oregon. I was 15. They took me in when no one else would. I lived there 14 years. Became Sister Abigail. I had purpose." "What happened?" The convent closed 6 months ago. Lost funding. The nuns were scattered. Mother Superior gave us all release letters. Said we were free to choose new paths. Abigail's hand goes to a small bundle beside the cot. My father died 2 months before that. Left me a land deed. 40 acres near the Canadian border. I was traveling there when those men found me. Then you stay here until you are strong enough to decide what comes next, Ezra says. No obligations, no expectations. Abigail meets his eyes, and for the first time since he saw her at the creek, something like hope flickers across her face. Small, cautious, fragile as new ice. But there. Okay, she says. Thank you, Ezra. He has not told her his name, which means she was listening more carefully than he realized when the men talked. Smart, observant, a survivor who pays attention to details that might save her life later. Get some sleep, Abigail, he says. He leaves the smokehouse and walks back to the cabin under a sky filled with stars. Inside, he goes through his nightly routine, banking the fire, checking the rifles, making sure ammunition is where he can reach it quickly if needed. But tonight feels different. The cabin feels different. For 4 years it has been a tomb, a place where he goes to sleep and wake and count hours until sleep comes again. Now it feels like something else, a shelter, a sanctuary, not just for him, but for someone who needs it even more. Ezra lies down on his bed fully clothed, one hand resting on the revolver under his pillow. Sleep comes slowly. When he finally slips under, the last thing he thinks about is the way Abigail said his name, like she was testing it out, like she was deciding whether it was a name she could trust. Morning arrives cold and gray. Ezra wakes before sunrise and goes through his morning tasks with practiced efficiency. Feed the horses. Check the water. The physical work helps clear his mind, helps him think through what needs to happen next. Clayton Mercer and his companions will be back. That is certain. The only question is when and how they will come. Men like that do not take humiliation lightly. They will want revenge for the loss of face as much as for the loss of their captive. Ezra is filling the water trough when he hears the smokehouse door creak open. Abigail emerges into the morning light. She moves stiffly, favoring her left side, but her eyes are clear and alert. She has washed her face. The blood is gone, revealing the full extent of the bruising. Dark purple spreads from her temple down her cheek, the mark of a fist or maybe a rifle butt. "Morning," Ezra says. Abigail nods. She looks around the camp, taking in details she was too exhausted to notice last night. The neat organization of it, the careful maintenance. This is not just a place to sleep. It is a home, or as close to a home as a man running from ghosts can build. "You need help with anything?" she asks. "You should rest." "I have been resting all night. I am stronger today." There is pride in her voice, the kind of pride that will not accept weakness, even when weakness would be reasonable. Ezra studies her. Pride stiffens her spine, pushes her shoulders back despite the pain he knows she must be feeling. He recognizes that pride. It is the same kind he carried after losing his family. The kind that says, if I stop moving, I will fall apart, and I cannot afford to fall apart. "Can you handle a hammer?" he asks. "Yes." "Then help me fix the north fence line. Posts are rotted through." They work together in silence, falling into an easy rhythm. Ezra pulls out old posts while Abigail digs new holes and sets replacements. She is strong, stronger than any woman he has known, possibly stronger than most men. When she swings the sledgehammer to drive posts into the hard Montana soil, each strike is solid and true. No wasted motion, just practiced efficiency. By mid-morning, they have replaced 8 posts and restrung 20 feet of wire. The sun finally breaks through the clouds, warming the air. Abigail works in her torn shirt, seemingly unbothered by the cold that still bites at exposed skin. "You learned this from your father?" Ezra asks. "Some. He taught me how to trap, how to trade, how to read. The physical work I learned from my mother's people. In the Shoshone camps, everyone works. Women build the lodges, process the hides, carry everything. When camp moves, You get strong, or you do not survive. Your mother teach you to fight. Abigail's hand still on the fence post she is setting. Why do you ask? Because you did not fight back at the creek. 3 men, and you did not even try. Made me wonder if you could not fight, or if you chose not to. Would you have fought if you knew it meant dying faster? The question hangs in the air between them. Ezra thinks about it, really thinks about it. Finally he nods. Fair point. My mother did teach me to fight, Abigail says. But she also taught me when fighting is pointless. Those 3 men, if I had fought, they would have beaten me unconscious and done whatever they wanted anyway. This way, I stayed aware, stayed ready for an opportunity. Until I showed up. Until you showed up, she agrees. They work in silence for another hour. The fence line gradually takes shape straight and solid. Ezra finds himself studying Abigail when she is not looking. The way she moves economical and purposeful. The way she scans the horizon every few minutes, never fully relaxing, always watching for threats. They are coming, Abigail says suddenly. Ezra's head snaps up. He follows her gaze to the eastern ridge. 3 riders, dark shapes against the gray sky. Coming at a walk, not hurrying, confident in their numbers and their intent. Get to the smokehouse, Ezra says quietly. There is a rifle under the cot. If shooting starts, use it. I can fight. I know. But right now, I need you to be smart instead of brave. If they see you, they will try to use you against me. Stay hidden. Abigail hesitates, pride warring with pragmatism. Then she nods and starts walking toward the smokehouse, moving quickly but not running, refusing to show fear even when fear would be the sensible response. Ezra turns to face the approaching riders. His heart hammers against his ribs like it wants to escape. The Winchester is in the cabin, too far to reach without turning his back on them. He has his revolver on his hip, but 3 against 1 at close range is not odds he likes. The 3 men rein in their horses 30 yards from the cabin. Clayton is in the lead. The flat-eyed man flanks him. The young one hangs back, nervous energy visible in the way he keeps shifting in his saddle. "Morning, Brennan," Clayton calls out. "Came to have a conversation." "Funny," Ezra says, keeping his voice level. "Yesterday you were on my land without permission. Today you are back. That does not feel like conversation. That feels like trespass. Yesterday was a misunderstanding. Today we are here to make things right." "How is that?" Clayton grins, showing tobacco-stained teeth. "You let us take what is ours, and we forget about that warning shot. Everyone goes their separate ways. Nobody gets hurt." Ezra's hand moves closer to the cabin door, closer to where the Winchester waits just inside. "Nothing here belongs to you. That woman does. Sister Abigail is not property. She is a person, and she is under my protection now." The flat-eyed man speaks for the first time, his voice as empty as his gaze. "Protection is expensive, Brennan. Costs blood sometimes. You sure you want to pay that price for some half-breed you do not even know?" "Already paid it when I cut her loose," Ezra says. "Question is whether you are ready to pay the price of trying to take her back." Clayton glances at the flat-eyed man looking for direction. The calculation is clear on both their faces. They are weighing profit against cost, desire against danger. "We got 3 guns to your 1, Clayton says, trying to sound confident. "And you are not even armed." Ezra smiles, but there is no warmth in it. "That is where you are wrong. I am always armed, and even if I was not, you would still have a problem." "What problem?" "The one watching you from the smokehouse with a Winchester aimed at your back." All 3 men turn instinctively. Ezra uses the distraction to grab the rifle from inside the cabin. By the time they turn back, he has the Winchester up and ready, the stock settled against his shoulder, the barrel trained on Clayton's chest. "Now we are having a real conversation," Ezra says. "Here is how it goes. You 3 ride out right now today, and you do not come back. Ever. You forget about Sister Abigail. You forget about me. You ride away and find some other trouble to get into, preferably in a different territory." "And if we do not?" the flat-eyed man asks. Then we find out if you are fast enough to draw before I pull this trigger. And even if you are, you still have to deal with whoever is in that smokehouse. Those odds do not favor you nearly as much as 3 against 1 did. The bluff is working. Ezra can see doubt in Clayton's face, nervousness in the young man's posture. The flat-eyed man is harder to read, but even he seems to be reconsidering the mathematics of the situation. For a long moment, nobody moves. The wind picks up carrying the smell of pine and creek water and the faint metallic scent of coming violence. "This is not over," the flat-eyed man says finally. His voice holds a promise, cold and certain. "You made a choice today, Brennan. You chose wrong." He turns his horse and starts riding away. The young man follows immediately, relief visible in every line of his body. Clayton hesitates. Fury twists his scarred face into something ugly and mean. "You will regret this," Clayton spits. "Maybe," Ezra says, "but not today." Clayton spits in the direction of the cabin, then wheels his horse around and kicks it hard, racing to catch up with the others. Ezra keeps the rifle up until all 3 disappear over the ridge. Only then does he lower it. His hands tremble slightly from adrenaline and the weight of what almost happened. Abigail stands in the smokehouse doorway, the rifle clutched in her hands. She was ready to shoot if it came to that. The realization settles over Ezra like a weight. This woman who took vows of peace, who lived in a convent for 14 years, had been prepared to take a life to protect his. "Thank you," Ezra calls out, "for backing me up." "You were bluffing," Abigail says, walking toward him, "about me being in the smokehouse with a rifle." "Part of it. But you were real enough. That is what mattered." She reaches him and holds out the rifle. Ezra takes it. Their fingers brush in the exchange. The touch lasts only a second, but it feels significant somehow, like a promise being made without words. "They will come back," Abigail says. "That one with the cold eyes, he is a killer, a professional." "I know." "So what do we do?" Ezra looks at her, at the determination in her eyes, the set of her jaw, and he realizes something. He started this thinking he was saving her, but maybe she is saving him too, saving him from 4 years of empty existence, saving him from a life that had become nothing more than waiting to die. "We get ready," he says. "We turn this place into something they cannot take, and when they come back we make sure they regret it." Abigail nods slowly. "Good. Let us get to work." Over the next 3 days, they transform the camp. Ezra works with the focused intensity of a man who knows death is coming and refuses to meet it unprepared. He reinforces the cabin windows with heavy shutters that can be barred from inside. Thick oak 2 inches deep with iron brackets, he forges himself over the fire. Each swing of the hammer drives home a single thought. Not again. Never again. Abigail proves invaluable in ways that surprise him. She knows things, tricks passed down through generations of Shoshone warriors who fought to protect what was theirs. She shows Ezra how to create tripwires using tin cans and taut cords strung at ankle height. How to dig shallow rifle pits at strategic points around the perimeter, covering them with branches so they blend invisible into the landscape. They stockpile water in barrels, ammunition in dry places, food that will keep. They construct a hidden exit from the cabin, a crawl space that leads to the creek bed 50 yards away. Escape route if the main door becomes impossible. But more than the practical help, Ezra finds himself appreciating her company. The cabin feels less empty with her there. They talk while they work. Not constantly, but enough. She tells him about growing up between 2 worlds, never quite belonging to either, about the convent and the strange comfort of a life governed by bells and prayers and routines. About the fear that came when that structure disappeared and she was left adrift. He tells her about Margaret and Ruth, about the life they built before misfortune tore it apart, about the ranch they planned but never finished, about dreams that died along with the dreamers. "You still love them," Abigail observes one evening as they sit on the cabin porch watching sunset paint the mountains in shades of fire. "Every day," Ezra admits. "That is good. Love should not die just because people do. You ever been in love? Abigail is quiet for a long time. Once, a young man from my mother's people. He was kind to me, did not care that I was half white, but his family forbade it, said I would bring shame to their bloodline. He obeyed them. She shrugs, but the gesture does not quite hide the old pain. That was a long time ago. His loss, Ezra says. She looks at him. Surprise flickers across her face. You mean that? Yeah, I do. Something shifts between them then. Subtle as creek water changing course, but real. A barrier falling away. They are not just two people sheltering under the same roof anymore, not just allies in a coming fight. They are becoming something more, though neither of them has words for what that something is yet. On the fourth morning, Abigail wakes before dawn with anxiety knotting her chest. She dreamed about the flat-eyed man. The dream felt like a warning, the kind her mother used to say came from spirits who wanted to protect you if you would only listen. She dresses and goes outside. Ezra is already up checking the perimeter defenses they built. He looks tired, like he has not slept much either. Could not sleep, he asks. Bad dreams. Ezra nods. Been getting those myself. Abigail walks to the fence line and looks out at the empty grasslands. The sun is starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Beautiful, peaceful. The kind of morning that makes you forget the world can be cruel. Ezra, she says slowly, if something happens today, I want you to know something. Do not talk like that. Listen. She turns to face him. I have been running for 6 months. Running from men who saw me as something to use. Running from places where I did not belong. And I was starting to think maybe they were right. Maybe there was no space for someone like me in this world. She takes a breath. But then you showed up at that creek. You cut those ropes. You treated me like a person, like I mattered. You gave me something I thought I had lost forever. What is that? Hope. The word hangs between them in the cool morning air. Ezra feels something crack open in his chest, something that has been frozen solid for 4 years starting to thaw. Abigail, He never finishes because that is when they hear the gunshot. It comes from the east, a single sharp crack that echoes off the mountains, then another, then a volley of shots rapid fire, the sound of multiple weapons being discharged at once. Ezra spins toward the sound. In the distance, maybe half a mile away, he can see smoke rising from beyond the next ridge. That is the Hartley place, he says. Sheriff's Ranch. They are creating a distraction, Abigail says, understanding immediately. Drawing you away. Or they are actually attacking the Hartleys. Tom has a wife and 2 young sons. More gunshots. The sound of screaming faint but audible across the distance. It could be real. It could be a trick. No way to know without going to look. Go, Abigail says suddenly. I can defend this place. Abigail. Go. She grabs the Winchester, checks that it is loaded. I will be fine, but those children might not be. I will be here when you get back. Ezra looks at her, at this impossible woman who walked into his life 4 days ago and somehow became the most important thing in it. Then he nods, grabs his rifle, and runs for his horse. He rides hard toward the Hartley Ranch, heart pounding in rhythm with the horse's hooves. The gunfire is constant now, punctuated by screams that sound terrifyingly real. He crests the rise overlooking the Hartley property and pulls his horse to a stop. Blood runs cold. The ranch is empty. No fire, no gunfight, no bodies. Just a phonograph sitting on the porch playing a recording of gunshots and screams. The smoke he saw was from wet grass that had been set smoldering, creating the illusion of a building on fire. The whole thing is a setup, an elaborate, carefully planned deception. Ezra yanks his horse around and spurs it into a full gallop, 3 miles back to his camp, 3 miles with the terrible certainty growing that he has been played, that he has done exactly what they wanted him to do. They wanted him gone, wanted Abigail alone. His camp comes into view and his worst fears materialize. Smoke rises from the smokehouse, real smoke this time, black and thick. 3 horses stand in the yard, 3 men. Ezra does not slow down. He charges down the slope at full speed, rifle in one hand, reins in the other. One of the men turns and shouts a warning. Clayton Mercer stands near the burning smokehouse holding a torch. He sees Ezra coming and laughs. "Come watch your savage burn, mountain man!" Ezra fires from horseback. The shot goes wild but close enough to make Clayton dive for cover. He hits the ground running, boots churning up dust as he closes the distance. The flat-eyed man steps out from behind the cabin, revolver drawn and aimed. Time seems to slow. Ezra sees the man's finger tighten on the trigger, sees the muzzle flash, feels the bullet burn past his shoulder so close the heat of its passage leaves a mark on his skin. He rolls, comes up with his rifle, and fires. The shot catches the flat-eyed man in the chest. The impact spins him like a top. He falls without a sound the way men fall when death comes quick and certain. In the framing of 1920, old Ezra's voice cuts through the memory like a knife through silk. "That was the first time I killed a man, and I felt nothing, not regret, not satisfaction, just emptiness. And one thought singular and absolute: I have to save her." Clayton is running for the horses. The young one, Frank Willis, just stands, frozen hands raised, all fight gone out of him. Ezra lets them go. He does not care about revenge, does not care about justice. Only one thing matters: the smokehouse. Flames climb the walls, eating the dry wood with hungry efficiency. Ezra runs toward the structure, his mind filling with images of Ruth, of Margaret, of everyone he failed to save. Abigail. His scream tears his throat raw. Abigail. No answer. The main door is barred from the outside. They trapped her inside, left her to burn like an animal. Ezra grabs the bar and heaves. The wood comes free and he yanks the door open. Smoke pours out thick and choking. He pulls his bandana over his nose and plunges inside. "Abigail, where are you?" A cough. Weak but there. He follows the sound to the back corner. Finds her near the rear wall, collapsed, the Winchester still clutched in her hand. Blood soaks her shirt from a wound in her side. "Shot me," she gasps. "Through the wall." Ezra lifts her, ignoring the scream of protest from his wounded shoulder. She is heavy, solid muscle and bone, but adrenaline gives him strength he did not know he had. He carries her toward the door as the roof begins to crack and groan above them. They burst out into open air seconds before the roof collapses inward, sending up a column of sparks and ash that climbs toward the sky like a prayer for mercy. Ezra carries Abigail away from the inferno, setting her down in the yard as gently as he can. Her face is gray with pain and smoke inhalation. Blood pumps from the bullet wound in her side, dark and steady. "Stay with me," Ezra says, pressing his hand against the wound. "Do not you dare die on me now." Abigail's eyes flutter. "Did we win?" "You are alive. That is a win." The flat-eyed man, Silas, dead. Good. She coughs. Blood appears on her lips. "Ezra, save your strength. I am going to patch you up." "No." Her hand grips his arm with surprising strength. "Listen, in my coat pocket, papers. My father's land deed. 40 acres near the Canadian border. If I die, it is yours." "You are not dying." "If I die," she insists, "it is yours. Build something there, something good." "Build it yourself," Ezra says roughly, his throat tight. "Because you are not dying. I will not allow it." Abigail smiles, blood on her teeth. "You cannot always get what you want, mountain man. Watch me." Ezra works through the night fighting to keep Abigail alive with a desperation that borders on fury. The bullet passed clean through her missing vital organs, but tearing muscle and leaving a wound that bleeds with stubborn persistence. He cleans it with whiskey that makes her scream through clenched teeth, digs out fragments of fabric the bullet carried inside, then stitches her with thread meant for repairing saddles. His hands shake, but his stitches hold. She slips in and out of consciousness. During the lucid moments, she tells him things about her childhood split between 2 worlds that wanted her to choose but would not accept her either way. About her father Patrick, the Irish trapper, who loved her mother enough to marry her, despite knowing it would cost him his family back home. About dreams of finding a place where she belonged, where being too tall and too mixed and too different was not a burden to carry, but simply who she was. "I think I found it," she whispers at one point, her hand finding his in the darkness. "Right here, with you." "Then stay," Ezra says, his voice raw. "Stay and help me rebuild." "Is that a proposal, Mountain Man?" "Maybe, if you live long enough to hear the whole thing." She laughs, then winces as the movement pulls at her stitches. "You are a hard man, Ezra Brennan." Takes one to know one. By morning the fever breaks. Abigail sleeps naturally instead of that restless, half-conscious state that terrified him through the night. Ezra sits beside her bed, his bed, the one he gave up so she could rest somewhere clean and safe, and watches the sun rise through the cabin window. The smokehouse is gone, reduced to charred timber and ash. But the cabin still stands. The land remains, and so do they, battered and bloodied, but alive. In the framing of 1920, old Ezra pauses his story. The reporter has stopped taking notes, too absorbed in the tale to remember his purpose. 2 weeks, Ezra says. That is how long the recovery took. 2 weeks of caring for her, changing bandages, bringing meals, reading aloud from the few books I owned when she was too weak to do anything but listen. And somewhere in those 2 weeks, something changed. Not love. Not yet. But the foundation for it. The recognition that we were building something together. Something that might outlast both of us. The reporter finds his voice. What happened to Clayton Mercer and Frank Willis? Clayton hung 3 weeks later. Got caught trying to rob a stage near Helena. Frank testified against him in exchange for leniency. The judge let Frank go with time served and a warning. Ezra's eyes grow distant. Frank came back. That surprised me, but I'm getting ahead of myself. He returns to the story. 2 weeks after the attack, Abigail is strong enough to sit up in bed. She sees the photographs of Margaret and Ruth on the small table Ezra moved into the room so she would not be staring at bare walls. "They are beautiful," Abigail says. "Ruth would be 10 this summer. Would have been tall, like you." "What do you think she would have liked?" "Books. Margaret taught her to read when she was 4. Ruth loved stories about princesses and knights." He pauses. "But she never got to go to school." Abigail is quiet for a moment. How many children are there like Ruth, who never get to learn? Ezra thinks about it, really thinks about it for the first time. In Montana, hundreds, thousands, especially the children who are different. The silence that follows is heavy with possibility, an idea taking shape in the space between words. 3 days later, Sheriff Tom Hartley arrives. He brings news. Clayton Mercer is dead, hung for his crimes. Frank Willis is free, having turned state's evidence. The threat is over. But he also brings something else. A telegram. "Came to my office yesterday," Hartley says, handing the folded paper to Abigail. "Concerns you, Miss Thorne." Abigail takes the telegram with hands that tremble slightly. She unfolds it and reads. Her expression shifts from confusion to shock to something that might be grief or might be relief. "What is it?" Ezra asks. "My uncle," Abigail says, her voice distant. "Cornelius Thorne. He is dead. Heart failure. His lawyer says I am his sole heir." Sheriff Hartley nods. That is what the telegram says. Apparently Cornelius had no other living relatives. Everything he owned goes to you. His mine, his house in Helena, his accounts. According to the lawyer, it is a considerable sum. "But he hated me," Abigail whispers. "He refused to help my father raise me. Called me tainted blood." "Maybe guilt caught up with him," Hartley says. "His lawyer mentioned there is a letter, said Cornelius wrote it before he died." He pulls an envelope from his coat and hands it over. "I will leave you to read it in private. Congratulations, Miss Thorne. You are a wealthy woman now." He mounts his horse and rides away, disappearing into the afternoon heat. Abigail stands holding the envelope like it might bite. Ezra waits, giving her space to process this sudden upheaval. Finally, she breaks the seal and pulls out several pages covered in shaky handwriting. "Do you want me to leave?" Ezra asks. No, Abigail says. Stay, I might need you. She reads aloud, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Abigail, if you are reading this, I am dead. Good riddance, you are probably thinking. You would be right to think it. I treated you and your father terribly. When Patrick married your mother, I called him a fool and a race traitor. When you were born, I refused to acknowledge you as family. When your mother died and Patrick begged me for help raising you, I turned him away. Her voice catches, but she continues. Why? Because I am a coward. I was raised to believe that blood purity mattered more than love. I believed it so deeply that I could not admit I was wrong, not even when I saw how it destroyed my brother. Patrick was a better man than I ever was. He loved your mother truly. He loved you completely. And he earned those survey coordinates. He did the work, the hiking, the measuring. I tried to claim them as mine only because I funded the expedition, but they were always his. Abigail's hand tightens on the paper. I sent Silas Drummond after you, not because you stole anything, but because I wanted to keep you from having what I could not stand you having. Success, happiness, belonging. But now I am dying, and none of my hatred kept me warm. None of my money bought me family. I die alone because I chose pride over love. Tears run down her cheeks now, but she keeps reading. Do not make my mistake, Abigail. Do not let fear or duty or other people's expectations steal your chance at happiness. Your father would want you to live, not just survive. The mine, the house, the money, it is all yours. Do something good with it. Build that school Patrick told me about in his letters. Be the woman he knew you could be. I am sorry. I know it is too late, but I am sorry. Cornelius Thorne. Abigail folds the letter slowly, carefully, like it is made of glass. She stands there, tears freezing on her cheeks in the autumn chill. Ezra does the only thing he can do. He wraps his arms around her and holds her while she cries for the father who loved her and the uncle who finally, at the very end, tried to make amends. When the tears subside, she pulls back and looks at him with eyes that hold a new kind of clarity. I have resources now, she says. Enough to build that school my father dreamed about. Enough to fund it for years. You do, Ezra agrees. I could hire teachers, builders' staff. I could create a place where children like me, children who do not fit into neat categories, could learn and grow without shame. You could do all of that. Abigail takes a breath. Or I could admit that my vows were made by a girl who did not know what love was, who did not know she could be faithful to God and faithful to her heart at the same time. She turns to face him fully, taking both his hands in hers. The church says my vows are eternal, she continues. But the convent released me. Mother Superior told us we were free to choose new paths. So what do I choose? Do I choose duty to vows made when I was 15 and terrified and desperate for purpose? Or do I choose something new? What do you want to choose? Ezra asks. I want to choose you, Abigail says simply. I want to choose this life we are building. I want to choose being both things I am, Shoshone and Irish and Catholic and woman and warrior all at once without apology. I want to build that school, yes, but I want to build it with you beside me, as my partner, as my equal, as my husband if you will have me. Ezra feels something shift in his chest, like a key turning in a lock that has been rusted shut for 4 years. On one condition, he says. What is that? You never call yourself too big again, or too anything. You are exactly the right size for what you need to be. Abigail laughs, a real laugh that comes from somewhere deep and genuine. Deal. But Ezra is not finished. He releases one of her hands and walks to the window, looks out at the land, the mountains, the endless sky. I need you to understand what I am offering, he says, and what I am not. Abigail waits. I am not offering you romance, Ezra continues. I am not offering you the kind of marriage that people write poems about. I loved Margaret with everything I had. When she died, that part of me died too. I do not know if it can come back. I do not know if I have another love like that in me. He turns to face her. But I can offer you partnership. I can offer you loyalty. I can offer you a man who will stand beside you in every fight, who will build beside you, who will defend what we create with his last breath. I can offer you honesty and respect and the kind of commitment that lasts because it is built on something stronger than passion. Why do you want to do this? Abigail asks. Build a school. You could take the money and disappear. Live comfortably for the rest of your life. Because Ruth died before she could learn to write her own name, Ezra says. His voice is rough with emotion he has kept buried for 4 years. Because every child who does not get to learn is another Ruth, another future stolen. And if I can build something, anything that prevents even one more child from dying without the chance to become who they were meant to be, then maybe her death was not completely meaningless. He takes a breath. But I cannot do it alone. I need a partner who understands what we are building, who shares the vision, who can handle the teaching while I handle the building, who can navigate the social world I have no patience for. And you think I can do that? I know you can. You spent 14 years in a convent learning patience and diplomacy and how to deal with difficult people. You speak multiple languages. You understand both white and native cultures. You are exactly what this school needs. He pauses. But it has to be a real partnership, legal, recognized, which means marriage. A marriage of convenience, Abigail says. A marriage of purpose, Ezra corrects. I will not lie to you and pretend I can give you romance, but I will give you everything else. Protection under the law, a home, a partner who will never betray you, and a chance to build something that outlasts both of us. Abigail is quiet for a long moment. Then she steps forward and takes his hands again. Ezra Brennan, I accept your proposal, not in spite of what it is, but because of it. I do not need poetry. I need what you are offering. Partnership, purpose, a chance to build something good in a world that has been cruel to both of us. She squeezes his hands. And maybe if we are very lucky, the rest will come in time. Or maybe it will not. Either way, we will have built something worth building. Ezra nods. Then we have an agreement. One condition of my own, Abigail says. What is that? If we build this school, we do it right. No one turned away, no matter their race, their background, their circumstances. Every child who wants to learn gets the chance. Ezra extends his hand. Deal. They shake. Not a romantic gesture, but something better. The sealing of a partnership that will change Montana forever. In the framing of 1920, old Ezra looks at the reporter with eyes that have seen 8 decades of life. People always want to know if we loved each other, he says. If the partnership became something more. And the answer is yes, but not the way they expect. It was not love at first sight. It was not passion that could not be denied. It was something slower, something that grew from shared work and shared purpose and the simple act of choosing each other every day. When did you know, the reporter asks, that I loved her? Ezra smiles. The day we opened the school. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. There is still the matter of getting married and building the damn thing. The sun is setting now, painting the valley in shades of orange and red. The school building stands solid against the fading light exactly as it has for 45 years. Should we continue tomorrow, Mr. Brennan? The reporter asks. It is getting late. Tomorrow I might be dead, Ezra says with a dry chuckle. No, we finish this tonight. You want the whole story, you get the whole story. Now where was I? Ah yes, the wedding. December 1875, the coldest damn day of the year. He settles back in his chair and continues. December arrives with snow that turns the Montana landscape into something clean and new. The world outside the cabin window is white, silent, perfect in the way only winter can be. Inside, Ezra and Abigail prepare for a wedding that neither of them wants and both of them need. Reverend Samuel Price arrived 2 days ago, a traveling Methodist minister seeking shelter from the storm. When Abigail asked if he performed marriage ceremonies, his weathered face split into a smile. "I do, miss. You know a couple in need of marrying." "We are that couple," Abigail said, looking at Ezra, "if you are willing to marry us." Reverend Price studied them both carefully. His eyes, sharp despite his years, moved from Ezra's scarred hands to Abigail's unusual height to the careful distance they maintained from each other. "You are the former nun folks have been talking about," he said finally. "I was a nun," Abigail confirmed. "Mother Superior released me when the convent closed. I am free to marry if I choose." "And you choose this man?" "I do." The Reverend turned to Ezra. "And you, sir? You understand what you are taking on? This will not be an easy life. People will judge her, judge you, judge any children you might have." "Let them judge," Ezra said. His voice carried the weight of a man who has stopped caring what the world thinks. "I have spent 4 years caring what people think, and it nearly killed me. I am done with that. If Abigail will have me, I will count myself the luckiest man in Montana." Reverend Price smiled. "Then I will marry you tomorrow morning if you would like. Do you want to write your own vows?" They spent the evening crafting words that would bind them together, not traditional vows, but something true to who they were and what they had survived to reach this moment. The next morning dawns clear and cold. Sheriff Hartley and his wife Emma arrived to serve as witnesses, having ridden through the night when word reached them. The ceremony takes place in front of the cabin's snow falling gently around them. Abigail wears a simple blue dress, practical and warm. Ezra wears his best vest, cleaned and pressed. They stand facing each other while Reverend Price speaks the traditional words, then steps aside to let them speak their own. Ezra holds Abigail's hands. His voice is steady, each word chosen with care. "I, Ezra Brennan, promise to Abigail Thorne I will be your loyal partner, protect you before the law and society. I will build beside you a place where my daughter would have deserved to learn, and I will respect you as a man respects the partner who fights beside him." Abigail's response comes strong and clear, no hesitation. "I, Abigail Thorne, promise to Ezra Brennan I will bring both my faith and my strength into the home we build. I will teach the children the world has forgotten, and I will stand beside you in every battle that comes. Then by the authority vested in me," Reverend Price says, "I pronounce you husband and wife. Ezra, you may kiss your bride." They kiss. Brief, respectful, not passionate, the kind of kiss that seals a contract rather than celebrates romance. In the framing of 1920, old Ezra pauses. "That was not the wedding people imagine when they hear love stories," he tells the reporter. "There was no passionate embrace, no tears of joy, but there was something stronger. Commitment. We committed to each other, to the children, to the future we would build. And that commitment proved more lasting than any passion could have been." The reporter scribbles notes. "What happened after the wedding, sir?" "We planned. All through that winter, while snow piled 3 feet deep, we planned every detail of the school. Winter passes in a blur of preparation. Ezra works on architectural plans, drawing from knowledge his father taught him decades ago. Simple designs, practical, built to withstand Montana weather. One large room for the main classroom. A smaller room for a library. A workshop for teaching practical skills. A kitchen where students can learn to cook and preserve food. Abigail writes letters to mission societies seeking funding, to educators asking about curriculum, to the land office confirming the deed her father left her. Every evening they sit by the fire and share what they have learned, what they have planned, slowly building the vision of what their school will become. In March, when the snow finally melts enough to travel, they make the journey to the land. 7 days through mountain passes, still choked with ice, camping in whatever shelter they can find. Sometimes that means a stand of pines that blocks the wind. Sometimes caves tucked into hillsides. Once it means an abandoned trapper's cabin where they wait out a storm that howls through the mountains for 2 days straight. In that cabin, with the storm raging outside and nothing to do but wait, they talk. Really talk. Abigail tells him about her time in the convent, about the strange comfort of a life governed by structure and prayer. About the women she lived with, some kind and some cruel, and how she learned to navigate both, about the moment Mother Superior told them the convent was closing and how it felt like the ground dropping out from under her feet. Ezra tells her about his life before Margaret, about growing up poor in Missouri, about the war that took so many men he knew, about meeting Margaret at a barn dance and how she laughed when he stepped on her feet instead of getting angry, about deciding to move west for a fresh start and how that decision led to both the best and worst moments of his life. "Do you regret coming to Montana?" Abigail asks. Ezra thinks about it. "I regret that they died here, but I do not regret the choice. We had good years before the fever came. Ruth grew up with mountains and sky and freedom most children never know. Margaret loved it here, said the land made her feel small in a good way, reminded her there were things bigger than her worries." She sounds wise. She was. Ezra looks at Abigail across the small fire they built in the cabin's fireplace. "She would have liked you. She always respected strength wherever she found it." The storm traps them for another day, but Ezra finds he does not mind. There is something peaceful about the enforced stillness, about having nowhere to go and nothing to do but exist together. On the third morning, the storm breaks. They emerge to find the world buried under 3 feet of fresh snow, pristine and untouched. The horses are restless, ready to move after being confined. On the 7th day they crest a final ridge, and the land Patrick Thorne claimed spreads out below them. 40 acres of meadow beside Flathead Lake, a creek running through it clear and cold, a stand of pines providing timber and shelter. Mountains rise behind it like guardians, snow-capped and eternal. It is beautiful in a way that makes the breath catch. Pristine, untouched, full of possibility. Abigail dismounts and walks down into the meadow. Ezra follows, leading the horses. She kneels in the snow and digs until she finds earth, then presses her hand against it. "My father's land," she says, her voice thick with emotion. "He never saw this, died before he could come here and build the life he dreamed of. But he made sure you could," Ezra says. "That counts for something." They explore together, Abigail pointing out features while Ezra assesses them with a practiced eye. The creek is positioned perfectly high enough to avoid flooding, but accessible for water. The meadow is flat enough for building, but sloped enough for drainage. The pines are old-growth, straight and strong, perfect for lumber. "Could support a school," Ezra says, "or a ranch, or both. Land is good enough for either." Abigail finds the survey stakes her father must have placed years before, each one marked with coordinates that match the deed. The final stake has something extra carved into it. For Abby, "Build your future." P. She traces the letters with her fingers, tears freezing on her cheeks. Ezra stands behind her, one hand on her shoulder, letting her grieve and hope and plan all at once. That night they camp on the land itself, building a fire in the shelter of the pines. The sky is clear and cold, stars scattered across it in numbers that defy counting. "I could build a school here," Abigail says, staring into the flames. "Teach children reading, writing, arithmetic, all the things they would need to make their way in the world, but also the practical skills. How to grow food, how to build things, how to survive when times get hard." "You will need a building," Ezra says, "staff, funding for supplies and food. The mineral rights could provide that. If we file the mining claims properly, lease the rights to a reputable company, the royalties could fund the school for decades." Abigail says, looking at him, "I am not doing this alone. I cannot. I need someone who knows this land, who knows how to build in this climate, who can teach the practical skills I do not have. I need a partner." "What kind of partner?" "The permanent kind," Abigail says quietly. "If you are willing." Ezra is quiet for a long moment. "If I stay, it will not be just as a partner in running a school. You know that." "I know. It means everything changes. Your vows, your relationship with the church, how people see you." "I know that too," Abigail says. "And I am choosing it anyway. I am choosing you. I am choosing this life. I am choosing to be whole instead of divided." Ezra reaches across the fire and takes her hand. "Then I am choosing the same thing. They sit like that, hands joined across the flames, while the stars wheel overhead, and the future spreads out before them like the meadow below, full of possibility and promise, and the hard work that turns dreams into reality. Spring arrives, and with it, construction begins. Ezra hires workers from nearby towns. Men who need work and do not ask too many questions about why a mountain man and a former nun are building a school in the middle of nowhere. The work is hard physical, the kind that leaves Ezra's muscles aching and his hands bleeding by the end of each day. But it is good pain, purposeful pain. Every board raised, every nail driven is a step closer to something that will outlast them both. 3 weeks into construction, a figure appears on horseback. Young, nervous, holding his hat in his hands like a shield. It takes Ezra a moment to recognize him. Frank Willis, the third man from the creek, the one who ran. Ezra's hand moves toward the rifle leaning against the partially built wall, but something in Frank's posture, the way he sits slumped in the saddle like a man carrying the weight of the world, makes him pause. Frank dismounts and approaches slowly, hands visible, making no sudden movements. "Mr. Brennan," he says. His voice shakes. "I know I have got no right to be here, no right to ask anything of you, but I need work, and I need a chance to do something good after all the bad I have done." Ezra studies him. Frank cannot be more than 25, barely more than a boy, really. His face carries the haunted look of someone who has seen parts of himself he does not like. "What did you do after they let you go?" Ezra asks. "Went home. Told my mother what I had done, what I almost did." Frank's voice cracks. "She cried. Told me I had to make it right somehow. So I came here. To ask for work." "To ask for a chance," Frank corrects. "A chance to prove I am not the man who stood by while Clayton hurt people. A chance to be someone my mother can be proud of." Ezra is silent for a long moment. He thinks about Margaret and Ruth, about second chances they never got, about the fine line between justice and mercy. "You will do exactly what I say," he says finally. "Work hard, no complaints. And if I catch you treating anyone poorly, especially children, you are gone. Understood?" Frank's eyes widen with surprise and something that might be hope. "Yes, sir, I understand." Ezra extends his hand. "Welcome to the team, Frank. Everyone deserves a second chance, even me." They shake. And in that moment, Ezra makes a choice that will define the school's philosophy for decades to come. Not punishment, but redemption. Not exclusion, but possibility. In the framing of 1920, old Ezra's voice grows soft with memory. "Frank Willis became one of the best men I ever knew. He worked on that school for 30 years, maintained the buildings, taught the boys carpentry, and metalwork, became a father to 5 children of his own, all of whom attended our school. But that day he was just a scared kid who needed someone to believe in him. I gave him that belief, and he proved me right every single day after." The reporter looks up from his notes. "That must have been difficult, sir, trusting the man who helped attack your wife." "Not my wife yet," Ezra corrects. "But yes, it was difficult. Every instinct told me to send him away. But then I thought about what we were building, a school for children who did not fit anywhere else, children society had given up on. If I could not forgive a young man trying to change, how could I ask society to accept children it had already rejected? So forgiveness became part of the school's foundation." "Not forgiveness," Ezra says. "Second chances. There is a difference. Forgiveness is about letting go of the past. Second chances are about building a different future." Summer arrives and the school takes shape. The main building rises from the meadow like a promise being kept. Simple but solid, built to last. Ezra stands back one evening and looks at it, this thing they have created from nothing but will and wood and back-breaking labor. Abigail comes to stand beside him. Her hand finds his. "We did it," she says. "Not yet. Building is the easy part. Getting people to send their children, that is where the real work begins." They are right to worry. In late August, a visitor arrives. Harrison Greaves from the Montana Mining Consortium. Well-dressed, well-spoken, the kind of man who makes money by knowing what people want before they know it themselves. "Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Brennan," he says, tipping his hat. "I have heard about your school. Admirable project. I wanted to discuss a business opportunity that could secure its future." "What kind of opportunity?" Ezra asks. "Your mineral rights. We have surveyed the area. There is silver here, possibly a lot of it. We would like to lease the rights. Our offer is $10,000. Abigail and Ezra exchange a glance. $10,000 is more money than either of them has seen in their lives. It could fund the school for 20 years. "And what would you do with the land?" Abigail asks. "Extract the silver, build processing facilities, standard mining operations." "And the creek?" Greaves hesitates. "Some diversion might be necessary." "No," Abigail says. The word comes out flat final. "That creek is our only water source. The children drink from it. No amount of money is worth risking their health." "Mrs. Brennan, that is very idealistic, but $10,000. "Our answer is no," Ezra says. He steps forward, putting himself slightly in front of Abigail. "This land is not for sale. Not the rights, not the water, not any part of it. It belongs to the children. It will always belong to the children." Greaves's pleasant expression hardens. "You are making a mistake. That money could change your lives." "Our lives have already changed," Ezra says. "Now please leave our property." The mining representative leaves, but Ezra knows this will not be the last they hear from him. Men like Greaves do not take no for an answer. They just find different ways to ask. 2 weeks before the school is set to open, another challenge arrives. 5 women on horseback led by Judith Crane. Judith is everything Ezra despises about so-called civilized society. Sharp-featured, sharp-tongued, a woman who has made it her mission to police everyone else's morality because her own life is too empty to fill. "We are here to inspect the school," Judith announces, dismounting without invitation. "There have been complaints." "Complaints about what?" Abigail asks. She has been inside arranging books in the small library. Now she steps out into the afternoon sun. "About the mixing of races, about improper religious instruction, about whether children are being taught proper Christian values or being corrupted by heathen influences." The other women shift uncomfortably. Not all of them share Judith's venom, but none of them have the courage to contradict her. Ezra feels anger rise in his chest, the kind of anger that comes from facing ignorance dressed up as righteousness. "These children," he says, his voice quiet but carrying an edge of steel, "are being taught reading, writing, arithmetic, history, science, and Bible study from the King James Bible. They are learning practical skills that will help them survive in this territory. And they are learning that being different does not make them less than anyone else. If that is corruption in your eyes, Mrs. Crane, then I am proud to be a corrupter." Judith's face flushes red. "You have no right to speak to me that way. I am a respectable woman from a respectable family. And I am a woman who spent 14 years in service to God," Abigail says, stepping forward to stand beside Ezra. "Who married a good man and who has devoted her life to educating children that people like you would rather see ignorant and ashamed. Respectability is not determined by who your parents were or what your name is. It is determined by what you do with the life you have been given." One of the other women steps forward. Her expression is less hostile than Judith's. "Mrs. Brennan, we are not trying to shut down your school. We just want to make sure the children are being properly cared for." "Then look around," Abigail says, gesturing to the classroom visible through the open door. "Look at the desks we built, the books we collected, the garden where they will learn to grow food. Talk to us about our curriculum if you like, but do not come here with predetermined judgments based on fear and ignorance." The woman does look. Her gaze moves across the classroom, taking in the careful preparation, the attention to detail, the clear evidence of love poured into every corner. "I do not see anything wrong here," she says finally, turning to Judith. "These people are doing good work." "Of course you do not see it," Judith snaps. "You always were too soft." "The only confusion I see," Ezra says quietly, "is in people who cannot tell the difference between education and corruption. These children will learn. They will thrive. If that offends you, the door is right there." Judith and her delegation leave, but the damage lingers. The confrontation reminds Ezra and Abigail that the world outside their school does not share their vision, that every child who walks through their door will be walking into a fight. That night, Abigail sits in the empty classroom staring at the desks they built. "Maybe they are right," she says when Ezra finds her. "Maybe I am asking too much, trying to change things that cannot be changed." "The world is already changing," Ezra says, sitting beside her. "We are just helping it along. And those children out there, the ones who will sit in these desks, they are going to grow up knowing they do not have to hide who they are. That is worth all the Judith Cranes in Montana." September 1st, 1877. Opening day. Ezra stands at the door of the school watching the eastern road. It is 8 in the morning. Classes are supposed to start at 8:30. No one has arrived. Abigail stands beside him. He can feel the tension radiating from her body. "What if no one comes?" she asks. Her voice is small in a way he has never heard before. "Then we wait," Ezra says, "and we try again tomorrow." 8:15. The road remains empty. 8:20. Still nothing. Ezra watches Abigail's hope slowly crumble. 4 years of work, 2 years of planning, all the money, all the effort, all the belief that they could make a difference. And it might all come to nothing because people are too afraid to let their children be the first. 8:25. Then in the distance the sound of hoofbeats. A farmer named Thomas Reed appears over the rise, his son Matthew sitting in front of him on the saddle. The boy is 8 years old, cannot read, has never been to school because the nearest one is 40 miles away, and his father cannot spare him during planting season. But he is here now. "Mr. Brennan," Thomas says, dismounting. "This is Matthew. He is ready to learn." Before Ezra can respond, more arrivals. A German family with 3 children, a Shoshone couple with 2 daughters, a Chinese widow whose husband died building the railroad bringing her son Lee. By 9:07, children sit in the classroom, ranging in age from 6 to 12, from backgrounds so different they might as well be from different worlds. And then one more arrives. Mary Whitfield, 12 years old. She comes alone, no parents, no explanation. She is tall for her age, taller than seems right, awkward in her own skin. She stops at the door, uncertain. Abigail approaches her. "Hello. What is your name?" "Mary," the girl whispers. "But everyone calls me Too Tall Mary." Ezra feels something crack in his chest. He steps forward, kneels so he is at the girl's eye level, even though she is nearly as tall as he is. "Mary," he says gently, "did you know my daughter?" Mary shakes her head, confused. "No, sir." "Her name was Ruth. She would have been tall, too. Tall like you. I built this school for her even though she is not here anymore to use it. So in a way, this school belongs to you. To all the children like you who the world says are too something, too tall, too different, too much. Do you want to know a secret?" Mary nods, tears already forming. "There is no such thing as too anything. You are exactly who you are meant to be. And here that is enough, more than enough. Do you want to come inside?" Mary's tears spill over, but she nods. Ezra stands and offers his hand. "Then welcome home, Mary." She takes his hand, tiny fingers wrapping around his calloused palm, and steps across the threshold into a place where she can finally belong. In the framing of 1920, old Ezra's voice breaks. "That was the moment I knew we had succeeded. Not because of the number of students, not because of the building or the curriculum, but because of Mary's face. The way she looked at me when I told her she was enough. That look was Ruth's face, Ruth's eyes, Ruth's hope. And I thought my daughter would want this. She would be proud of what we built." The reporter has stopped taking notes. He sits with his pen frozen above the page, moved by the rawness in the old man's voice. "What happened to Mary Whitfield?" he asks softly. "She became one of our best students, then one of our teachers. She opened 3 more schools across Montana using our model. Last I heard, she had educated over 500 children." Ezra smiles. But that first day she was just a scared girl who needed someone to tell her she mattered. The first day of school passes in a blur. Ezra teaches the older children practical skills in the workshop: how to identify edible plants, how to read weather signs, how to build emergency shelter, the things that separate survival from death in Montana. Abigail teaches the younger ones inside reading, writing, basic arithmetic. She discovers that Li Chen speaks almost no English, so she begins teaching him while learning Chinese words from him in return. The German children teach counting in German. The Shoshone girls teach words for plants and animals in their language. The classroom becomes a place where differences are celebrated rather than hidden, where being from somewhere else, being something other, is an advantage rather than a curse. By the end of the day, when parents arrive to collect their children, the transformation is visible. The kids are excited, animated, already looking forward to tomorrow. Some of the parents look uncertain, but the children's enthusiasm is infectious. As the last family leaves, Ezra and Abigail stand on the porch of their cabin, watching the sun set over the school building. "We did it," Abigail says. "One day down, 179 to go in the school year. Always so practical. Someone has to be. You are the dreamer." They stand in comfortable silence. Then Abigail speaks again, her voice careful. "Ezra, I want to ask you something." "What is it?" "Our agreement, our partnership. Could it be flexible?" Ezra looks at her. "Flexible how?" "Flexible meaning. Maybe we started this for practical reasons, because we needed each other to build the school, but what we have built it is more than just the building. And I wonder if our partnership could become something more, if we both wanted it to." Ezra is quiet for a long moment. He thinks about Margaret, about the love he lost, about the fear of loving again and losing again. But he also thinks about the past 2 years, about working beside Abigail, about the quiet comfort of her presence, about the way she makes him want to be better than he is. "Maybe," he says finally, "give it time." "How much time?" "However long it takes for both of us to be sure." He takes her hand, not a grand gesture but significant, the first truly romantic touch in their marriage. "We have built something good here, Abigail. Let us not rush the rest. Let it grow naturally like the school, like everything worth having." Abigail squeezes his hand. "I can live with that." They stand together, hand in hand, watching night fall over the valley, over the school that bears both their names, over the future they have built from pain and loss and stubborn refusal to give up. Inside the school building, 7 desks wait for tomorrow, 7 children who have found a place to belong. It is not many, but it is a start, and from small starts, great things grow. The years that follow are not easy. There are challenges, setbacks, moments when it seems the whole enterprise will collapse, but the school survives, more than survives, it thrives. By the second year they have 15 students. By the third, 22. Some board with local families during the week, traveling home on weekends. Others make the daily journey, some walking miles each way for an education. Mary Whitfield, now 15, becomes Abigail's assistant teacher. She has a gift for working with younger children, a patience that comes from remembering her own struggles. She plans to take teacher training when she turns 18, then return to teach full-time. Frank Willis becomes the school's handyman and Ezra's assistant in teaching practical skills. He has found redemption through service, and though he never speaks much about his past, his dedication speaks for itself. New challenges arise. In 1882, a delegation arrives from Kalispell. More complaints about mixing races, about improper instruction. But this time Ezra and Abigail are ready. They have letters from parents praising the school. They have test scores showing their students outperform children in traditional schools. They have the evidence of changed lives. The delegation leaves with nothing to complain about except their own prejudices. In 1885, 3 Shoshone elders travel from a reservation 200 miles south with a request. Could the school take in 10 Shoshone children whose families had been displaced? children who needed education but would not receive it on the reservation. Abigail looks at her school already near capacity, looks at her budget stretched thin, looks at Ezra, who nods without hesitation. "Yes," she says, "we will make room." They build a third dormitory. The Methodist Mission Society increases funding. Other donors emerge, moved by stories of what the school is accomplishing. The 10 Shoshone children arrive in June. Among them is a boy named Daniel Running Wolf, 12 years old. He speaks almost no English. Abigail works with him personally, teaching English while relearning Shoshone words from her childhood. He is bright, hungry for knowledge, determined to succeed. "My mother says education is survival," Daniel tells her months later in halting English. "She says I must learn the white man's ways to protect our people." "Your mother is wise," Abigail says, "but do not forget your people's ways either. You will need both." By autumn, Daniel is reading at grade level and teaching younger students basic Shoshone. Another child saved from being lost between worlds. The years accumulate. Each one brings challenges and triumphs. A smallpox scare that closes the school for 3 weeks. A harsh winter that tests everyone's resolve. Another attempt by the mining company to buy the land, this time offering $15,000, which Abigail refuses without hesitation. "This land is for the children," she tells their representative. "It will always be for the children." Through it all, the school grows, not just in size but in reputation. Educators from other territories visit, wanting to understand how they make it work. Abigail's answer is always the same. You teach each child as they are, not as you wish they were. You honor where they come from while preparing them for where they are going. And you never ever make them choose between the parts of themselves. In October of 1885, a 16-year-old troublemaker named Jake rides up to the school looking for his younger brother Timothy. He finds the students outside during break, and his eyes settle on Mary Whitfield, who has returned from Teachers College. "Well, look at this," he drawls. "The giant is still here. You ever stop growing, girl?" Mary's face goes red. She is tall, taller even than she was at 12. But she has grown into it, learned to carry her height with grace. Before she can respond, a small, fierce 8-year-old named Hannah Collins steps forward. Hannah's mother works in the school kitchen. The girl has appointed herself Mary's protector. "Leave her alone," Hannah says, her small fists clenched. Jake laughs. "What are you going to do about it, runt?" Before Hannah can respond, Abigail emerges from the school building. She walks across the yard with deliberate calm, steel in her spine, fire in her eyes. "That is enough," she says. Jake turns to her. Abigail stands 6 feet 1 inch tall, 3 inches taller than Jake. She does not raise her voice, does not threaten, just looks at him with an expression that says she has dealt with far worse than a teenage bully. "I was just having fun," Jake mumbles. "No," Abigail interrupts. Her voice is quiet, but absolute. "You were being cruel. Making someone else feel less does not make you more. It just makes you less in the ways that actually matter." Jake's face reddens. "You cannot talk to me like that." "I just did. And now you are going to apologize to Mary, collect your brother if he wants to go, and leave." Abigail takes 1 step forward, bringing herself to her full height. She does not raise her voice, does not make any threatening gesture, just looks at him with the calm certainty of someone who has survived far worse than anything he could do. Jake takes a step back. Whatever, she is not worth it anyway. He leaves without Timothy, who has decided to stay. When he is gone, Abigail kneels beside Mary. "Are you all right?" Mary nods, tears on her face. "I thought I was past caring what people like him say." "We never get completely past it," Abigail says gently. The words still sting, but you get better at remembering they are wrong. You are exactly the right size, Mary, and anyone who cannot see that is not worth your tears. Hannah hugs Mary fiercely. "You are the best teacher I ever had, and you are beautiful." Mary laughs through her tears. "Thank you, Hannah." That night, Abigail tells Ezra about the incident. "We are breaking cycles here," she says. Every child we teach that they do not have to hate people for being different, that is one more person who might raise their children better. It is slow work, Ezra says. The best work usually is. And through it all, through every challenge and triumph, Ezra and Abigail grow closer. Not through grand romantic gestures, but through the simple act of choosing each other every day, through shared work and shared purpose, and the quiet comfort of partnership that has deepened into something more. One evening, 5 years after the school opened, they sit on their cabin porch, watching sunset paint the mountains gold. "I love you," Ezra says. The words come out simple, unadorned, but they carry the weight of 5 years of partnership, of choosing each other, of building something together. Abigail turns to him, surprise and joy mixing on her face. "What brought this on?" "Watching Mary today, watching you defend her, watching you be exactly who you are without apology, and realizing that somewhere in the past 5 years our partnership became something more. I did not mean to fall in love with you, but I did anyway." "Good," Abigail says, smiling, "because I love you too. Have for a while now. I was just waiting for you to catch up." They kiss. Not their first kiss, but the first one that carries the full weight of what they mean to each other. 5 years of trust and work and shared purpose crystallizing into this moment. When they pull apart, Ezra rests his forehead against hers. "Margaret would have liked you," he says. "I wish I could have known her." "You do. Every time you teach a child, every time you refuse to let the world's cruelty win, she is there. And Ruth, too. This whole school is built on their memory and your courage." They sit together as night falls, hand in hand, watching the school building stand solid against the darkening sky. Now, in the framing of 1920, old Ezra looks at the reporter with eyes wet with tears he no longer tries to hide. "You want to know when the partnership became love," he says. "I cannot point to a single moment. It was 1,000 small moments, working together, building together, defending each other, choosing each other every single day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. That is what real love is, not the lightning strike, but the steady flame that burns for 40 years. 40 years, the reporter says softly. You were married 40 years. Would have been 45 this December, but Abigail died in 1915. Her heart gave out one morning. She was 69, still teaching the day before, still fighting for her students, still refusing to let the world tell her who she could be." Ezra's voice breaks. Even after 5 years, the grief is fresh. "Tell me about it, sir," the reporter says gently, "if you can." Ezra takes a shaky breath and returns to the memory he has tried so hard to avoid. It was April 1915. Spring had come early that year, turning the valley green. Abigail had been tired for weeks, but she refused to slow down. There was too much work to do, too many children who needed her. That morning she woke before dawn as always. Ezra heard her moving around the cabin preparing for the day. Then he heard a sound that will haunt him until his dying day. A soft gasp, the thud of her body hitting the floor. He found her collapsed beside the bed, her breathing shallow, her face gray. He carried her back to bed, sent for the doctor, held her hand while they waited. The doctor came, examined her, shook his head. "Her heart, Ezra. It is failing. There is nothing I can do." "How long?" Ezra's voice came out strangled. "Days, maybe hours." Ezra sent word to the students, to the teachers. They came, all of them. Students she had taught decades ago now, adults with children of their own, students currently enrolled, teachers she had trained. They filled the cabin, the porch, the yard, a silent vigil for the woman who had changed all their lives. Mary Whitfield came. Now 50 years old, a grandmother, a teacher who had opened 3 schools of her own. She knelt beside Abigail's bed, holding the hand of the woman who taught her she was enough. "Thank you," Mary whispered, "for everything." Daniel Running Wolf came, a decorated officer, the first Shoshone to achieve such rank. He stood in his uniform, tears streaming down his weathered face, and saluted the teacher who taught him he could be both Shoshone and American without choosing. Hannah Collins came, a published author whose books told stories of frontier education. She read from her latest work a thinly veiled account of a school run by a mountain man and a nun who refused to accept the world as it was. For 2 days Abigail lingered, sometimes conscious, sometimes not, but always surrounded by the love she had spent 40 years creating. On the second night she woke. Her eyes found Ezra's. "We did it," she whispered. "We built something that will last." "We did." Ezra set his throat tight. "But you need to rest now. Save your strength." "No." Her grip on his hand tightened with surprising force. "Listen, I am dying, Ezra. We both know it. But I am not afraid. I have lived more in 40 years with you than most people live in 80. I have loved and been loved. I have made a difference. I have no regrets." "Abigail, promise me something. Promise you will keep the school going, that you will not let it die with me." "I promise." "And promise me you will remember. We proved them all wrong. Everyone who said a mountain man and a half-breed nun could not change the world. We proved you can save one person and through them save thousands. That legacy matters more than blood or wealth or any of the things the world values. Promise me you will remember." "I promise," Ezra said, tears streaming down his face. Abigail smiled, squeezed his hand one last time. "I love you, Ezra Brennan. Loving you was the best choice I ever made. I love you too." She closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed, became shallower, and then with Ezra holding her hand and 200 people who loved her surrounding the cabin, Abigail Thorne Brennan took her last breath. The silence that followed was absolute. Then from somewhere in the crowd outside a voice began to sing, a hymn Abigail loved. Others joined. The song swelled, filling the valley, a tribute to a woman who spent her life teaching others to sing. They buried her on the hill above the school next to a place Ezra has already marked for himself. The funeral drew over 300 people, students she taught, teachers she trained, parents whose children she saved, all of them gathering to honor a woman who proved that one life lived with purpose can change the world. In the framing of 1920, old Ezra wipes his eyes. "That was 5 years ago," he tells the reporter. 5 years and I still wake up reaching for her. Still expect to hear her voice in the classroom. Still turn to tell her something and remember she is gone. How did you keep going, sir? I made a promise, and I keep my promises. Ezra gestures toward the school. The school is her legacy. As long as it stands, she lives. Every child who learns to read, who discovers they matter, who finds the courage to be themselves, that is Abigail. That is both of us. That is the only immortality worth having. The reporter is quiet for a long moment. Then he asks, "What do you want people to know, Mr. Brennan? What is the lesson of your life?" Ezra thinks about it, really thinks about it. Then he speaks, his voice carrying the weight of 87 years. "I want them to know that one person can make a difference, that saving one life, truly saving it, not just the body, but the spirit that act ripples outward forever. I saved Abigail from those men at the creek. She saved me from a life of empty existence. Together we saved hundreds of children, and those children will save thousands more. That is legacy. That is what matters." He pauses, takes a breath. "I want them to know that love is not always lightning. Sometimes it is the steady flame, the choice to stay, to build, to keep showing up even when it is hard." Abigail and I, we did not have a fairy tale romance. We had something better. We had partnership. We had purpose. We had 40 years of choosing each other every single day. And that is worth more than any passion. And I want them to know that it is never too late to change. Frank Willis helped attack my wife. He became one of the best men I knew. Mary Whitfield thought she was too tall to matter. She became a teacher who changed hundreds of lives. Daniel Running Wolf was a boy caught between two worlds. He became a bridge between them. Every single one of them proves that people can change if someone gives them the chance. The sun has set now. Darkness fills the valley. But lights shine from the school building. Classes ended hours ago, but the building is never truly empty. It has become more than a school. It is a community center, a safe haven, a beacon of hope in a territory that still struggles with the idea that different does not mean less. "One more question, sir," the reporter says. "If you could go back to that day at the creek, knowing everything that would follow, all the pain and the joy and the work, would you still stop? Would you still help her?" Ezra does not hesitate. Every time, 1,000 times. Because that choice, that one moment of deciding to care when I could have ridden past that choice, led to everything good in the 45 years since. A man is not defined by what he says or what he thinks. He is defined by what he does when it costs him something. I chose to help a stranger, and that stranger became my wife, my partner, the love of my life, and together we built something that will outlast both of us by 100 years. He stands slowly, joints protesting, walks to the edge of the porch, looks out at the school building, at the valley, at the mountains that have witnessed every moment of this journey. "They asked me what I want on my headstone," he says. "I told them, here lies Ezra Brennan. He stopped when others rode past. Everything else is just details." The reporter closes his notebook. Some stories cannot be contained in words. Some legacies speak for themselves. As he rides away in the darkness, he looks back one last time. The old man still stands on the porch, silhouetted against the lit windows of his cabin. Behind him, the school building stands solid, a testament to what two broken people can build when they refuse to let the world's cruelty win. Inside that building, carved into a beam above the main door, words that have greeted every student for 45 years. "You are enough. You are welcome. You belong." Below it, smaller, built in memory of Ruth Brennan, who never got the chance to learn, and in honor of every child the world has forgotten. May you find here what you could not find anywhere else, a place to be exactly who you are. The school will stand for another 30 years, will educate over 5,000 students, will become a model copied across the Western Territories, will prove that education built on love and acceptance and stubborn refusal to accept the world as it is can change everything. But tonight it is just a building standing in the darkness, just wood and stone and glass, just the physical manifestation of two lives joined in purpose, just a school and everything. Ezra Brennan will die 14 months after this interview in his sleep at the age of 88. They will bury him next to Abigail on the hill above the school. His funeral will draw over 600 people, students, teachers, the children and grandchildren of people he taught. At the funeral, Mary Whitfield, now 56, will speak. "Ezra Brennan taught me I was enough, not in spite of being too tall, but because of everything I was. He built a school not for the children who fit, but for the children who didn't. And in doing so, he proved that the misfits, the too much and not enough, the caught between and left behind, we are the ones who change the world. Because we know what it means to need a place to belong. And once we find it, we make damn sure no one else has to search as hard as we did." The school will survive until 1958. Economic changes, population shifts, the consolidation of rural schools into larger districts. All these factors will eventually close its doors, but the building will stand preserved as a historical site, a reminder of what was, a promise of what could be again. And every year on the first day of September, descendants of students who attended the Thorne Brennan School will gather on that hill. They will tell stories of Ezra and Abigail. They will remember what it meant to be taught you were enough. They will pass those stories to their children and grandchildren. They will keep the legacy alive, because some things are too important to let die, some lessons too valuable to forget, and some love stories, the ones built on partnership and purpose and the daily choice to keep building, even when the world says to stop, those stories echo forever. Ezra and Abigail Brennan stopped when others rode past. They saved one person, and through her, they saved the world.